Shalom and welcome to Hebrew Bible Secrets with your host, Rabbi Beaton. We are reading today from the book of Matthew, starting at chapter 22. Matthew chapter 22, 1. And Yahushua answered and spoke to them again by parables and said, 2. The kingdom of Shamayim, the kingdom of heaven, is like to a certain king which made a marriage for his son. 3. And sent forth his servants to call them that were invited to the wedding, and they would not come. 4. Again he sent forth other servants, saying, Tell them which are invited, Behold, I have prepared my dinner, my oxen and my fatlings are killed, and all things are ready, come to the marriage. 5. But they were indifferent to it, and went their ways, one to his farm, and another to his business. 6. And the rest, having seized his servants, insulting them, and then killed them. 7. But when the king heard this, he was angry, and he sent forth his armies, and destroyed those murderers, and burned up their city. 8. Then said he to his servants, The wedding is ready, but they which were invited were not worthy. 9. Go therefore into the highways, and as many as you shall find, invite to the marriage. 10. So those servants went out into the highways, and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good. And the wedding hall was filled with guests. 11. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man who did not have on a wedding dress. 12. And he said to him, Friend, how come you are in here not having a wedding dress? And he was speechless. 13. Then the king said to the servants, Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth. 14. For many are called, but few are chosen. 15. Then went the Pharisees, and took counsel how they might entrap him in his speech. 16. And they sent out to him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Rabbi, we know that you are true, and teach the way of Elohim in truth. Neither do you care for any man, for you do not show partiality. 17. Tell us, therefore, what do you think? Is it permissible by Torah to give a tax to Caesar or not? 18. But Yahushua perceived their wickedness, and said, Why do you test me, you hypocrites? 19. Show me the tax money. And they brought to him the coin used for tax. 20. And he said to them, Whose is this image and inscription? 21. They said to him, Caesar's. Then he said to them, Render therefore to Caesar the things which belong to Caesar's, and to Elohim the things that are Elohim's. 22. When they heard these words, they marveled and left him, and went their way. 23. The same day came to him the Sadducees, which say that there is no resurrection, and ask him. 24. Saying, Rabbeinu, our great teacher, Musa, said, If a man dies having no children, his brother shall marry his wife, and raise up sons to his brother. 25. Now there were with us 7 brothers, and the first, when he had married a wife, deceased, and having no sons, left his wife to his brother. 26. Likewise, the second also, and the third to the 7th. 27. And last of all, the woman died also. 28. Therefore, in the resurrection, whose wife will she be of the 7? For they all married her. 29. Yahushua answered and said to them, You do err, not knowing the scrolls, nor the power of Elohim. 30. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given to marriage, but are as the Malachim, the angels, in Shamayim, heaven. 31. But concerning the resurrection of the dead, have you not read that which was spoken to you by Elohim, saying, 32. I am the Elohim of Abraham, and the Elohim of Yitzhak, Isaac, and the Elohim of Yaakov, Jacob. Elohim is not the Elohim of the dead, but of the living. 33. And when the multitude heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. 34. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. 35. Then one of them, who was an expert in Torah, asked him a question, testing him, and saying, Rabbi, which is the greatest commandment in the Torah? 37. Yahushua said to him, Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Akkad. And you shall love Yahweh your power, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. 38. This is the first and the great commandment. 39. And the second is like to it. You shall love your neighbor as yourself. 40. On these two commandments hangs all the Torah and the prophets. 41. While the Pharisees were gathered together, Yahushua asked them, 42, saying, What do you think of Messiah? Whose son is he? They said to him, The son of David. 43. He said to them, How then does David in the Ruach, the Spirit, call him Adon, Master, Lord, Yahweh, saying, 44. Yahweh said to my Adon, Master, Lord, Sit on my right hand till I make your enemies your footstool. 45. If David then calls him Adon, Master, Lord, Yahweh, how is he his son? 46. And no man was able to answer him a word, neither did any man from that day forth ask him any more questions. So there now ends chapter 22. So let's go back and have a look at some of the footnotes in chapter 22. So the first footnote we have is in verse 2. The kingdom of the Shamayim is like to a certain king. So let's have a look at this. So this is the Abba Yahweh in the Shamayim. So this is the Father, Abba Yahweh in the heavens. Okay. So the next footnote is in verse 3. And sent forth his servants to call them that were invited. Okay, let's have a look at this word invited. So the only two that had the invitation card, so to speak, was Israel's both houses. So we're talking basically the 12 tribes, yeah? So the two houses together, the 12 tribes, they were the ones who were originally invited to the wedding, okay? So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 5. But they were indifferent to it, and went their ways, one to his farm, and another to his business. So let's have a look at this word, business. Neither son was yet ready to come, so were both preoccupied with their own thing. House of Israel in its pagan idolatry, and Yehuda in its outward righteousness. Okay, so this is where we are today. Many are indifferent, some are returning, obviously, but there are many still lost in the pagan ways, obviously, church system and so on and so forth, and other religions. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 6. And the rest, having seized his servants, insulting them, and then killed them. So we have here, the servants are the prophets which Yehuda killed. Okay? So the next footnote after that is, so Yehuda obviously being Judah, yeah? So the next footnote we have after that is in verse 7. But when the king heard this, he was angry, and he sent forth his armies and destroyed those murderers and burned up their city. So let's have a look at this. The city that was burned up was Jerusalem, because of their repeated sin and not heeding the words of Abba Yahweh, rescued through the prophets of Israel. So the prophets came to warn Israel, and Israel obviously wasn't interested in the prophets or what they had to say, so didn't want to hear what was coming out of their mouths. So obviously killed the prophets. So this is what, we see today. People are just rejecting, Torah truth. They don't want to listen to those who are actually telling them to return back to the commandments. So, there will be a price for that at some stage. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 8. Then said he to his servants, the wedding is ready, but they which were invited were not worthy. So let's have a look at this. So both houses could not earn their way to Shamayim, to heaven. Okay? So neither were living righteously in the eyes of Abba Yahweh, because they couldn't earn their way into the Shamayim, to heaven. So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 9. Go therefore into the highways, and as many as you shall find, invite to the marriage. Okay, so we have here, the king, our Abba Yahweh, offered us unmerited favor to come in. Okay, so the unmerited favor is just returning back to the commandments, and that's it, you're in. But Israel couldn't see that. That's all they had to do is just, and have to do today, is return back to the commandments, and they're in the kingdom. But yet still, many are still rebelling. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 10. So those servants went out into the highways and gathered together all as many as they found, both bad and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. Okay, so let's have a look at the next footnote, which is, this is the major harvest, the great Chag, the celebration of tabernacles, where everyone is gathered, both good and evil. So the wheat and the chaff is gathered to be sorted. So, in a sense, it's like the Father judging those who have kept his Torah, and obviously those who haven't kept the Torah will be kicked out of the kingdom. Okay? So the next footnote we have is verse 11. And when the king came in to see the guests, he saw there a man who did not have on a wedding dress. So let's have a look at this wedding dress. So the wedding dress is the rescue that was offered through Torah. This man thought he was okay to be a wedding guest by wearing any old clothes. He was carrying his own worldly rules and not cloaked by Yahweh's Torah. So, again, this is what, we have today. There are some who pick and choose the commandments. I like this one, this is okay. Don't like that one, I'm not doing that one. You come in with your own understanding of, Torah. And for that reason, in a sense, rebelling to all the commandments, apart from the animal sacrifices, everything else has to be done. So, there's going to be a price for that as well. So the next footnote is in verse 12. And he said to him, "Friend, how come you are here not having a wedding dress?" And he was speechless. So we've got another footnote here for wedding dress. He was asked, "Where is your covering? Where is your Torah deeds?" Since he did not bother to check and had not even repented of his sins, he was speechless because he thought he can come in any way he likes and all will be well. This is a picture of today's humanness with its worldly good works. This is the idea of the world. I am good and I will go to heaven. The same thing happens with Christians who think they can utter the name of Jesus and just waltz into heaven. So, like we said, those who are picking and choosing, those who just, call on the name of Jesus and believe that's it, that's all you have to do, it's time to wake up. You have to come back to the commandments. The commandments are key for you to enter the kingdom. So, please take heed. So the next footnote we have is in verse 13. Then the king said to the servants, "Bind him hand and foot, and take him away, and cast him into outer darkness. There shall be weeping and gnashing of teeth." Okay, let's have a look at this, weeping and gnashing of teeth. He was thrown outside the kingdom, where there is no light, as only those that are inside the kingdom, Israel, have light. Outside the nations is darkness and no Torah. The question is, how did he make it in the first place? The answer is simple. It shows two levels of judging, one by the servants and one by the king. The king's judgment stands. The officials allowed everyone to come in, as that is what the king had said, call anyone, but later the king declared them to be removed. This reveals human reasoning flawed with the idea of, I can do whatever I want to and still be saved. This instills the idea that redemption is not a game. We must come according to Yahweh's requirement and not our own. He commands us to obey the Torah and guard the commandments. So see Genesis 26 and 5. Let's have a look at that quickly. Genesis 26 and 5. Genesis 26 and 5. Because Abraham obeyed my voice and guarded my ordinance, my commandments, my statutes, and my Torah. So we have a footnote here for Torah. Abraham was a very good Torah keeper, and Yahweh gave a true report on behalf of Abraham, keeping his Torah teachings. And Abraham was also called my friend by Yahweh as well, because obviously he kept the commandments. So we also have Deuteronomy 28 and 1. Let's have a look at that quickly, if we can. Deuteronomy 28 and 1. And it shall come to pass, if you shall listen carefully to the voice of Yahweh your power, to guard and to do all his commandments, which I have commanded you this day, that Yahweh your power will elevate you high above all nations of the world. Okay, so we have a footnote for your power, to guard. Let's have a look at this, to guard. The word Shema here means to protect and to obey the commandments. The protection is like your own property and right. Do you guard his commandments like you guard your son and daughter, or your most material prized possession? The meaning behind this is like a soldier standing with a machine gun, guarding and fighting for his country and the rights of his nation. Okay, so that's how we have to guard the commandments, basically. So let's have a look at, we've got another footnote here. Your power will elevate you high above all nations of the world. So we have a footnote for world. Yahweh will also raise up Israel first in the order of resurrection. So the idea in the ancient Hebrew, Elyon, to be elevated, is not just an elevation here, but also elevation ahead of the world. In ancient Hebrew, it means to be led by the hand of Yahweh. Okay? So that's the importance of keeping the commandments. So we also have Joshua 1 and 8, which I'm not going to read, but I'm going to go to Psalm 19, 7 and 8 to give you some more understanding. Psalm 19, 7 and 8. The Torah of Yahweh is complete, converting the soul. The testimony of Yahweh is trustworthy, making wise the simple. 8. The statutes of Yahweh are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of Yahweh is pure, enlightening the eyes. Okay? So also you have, and Matthew 19:17. So many who refuse to do this can be typified as the various Christian denominations. Note, this is a parable to show that no one will get into the kingdom who have rejected the Torah rule. Without Torah, you have lost the keys to the kingdom. Okay, so that's how important it is to return back to the commandments. You know, you have a Levite priest now that you can give your tithes to, give your offerings to. Circumcision is just as important. You know, all of these things that, you know, we can do, we must do. Okay? So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 14. For many are called, but few are chosen. So, for many are called. Let's have a look at this first. So the call is given to everyone to repent. So that's the call. The call's gone out. Repent and return back to the commandments. But few are chosen. So let's have a look at this. Only the 12 tribes of Israel, the 2 houses, are chosen as the kingdom of priests. Okay, so you've got other people out there saying, you know, everyone who keeps Torah will, you know, become the priests of the kingdom. That's not true. It's only the 12 tribes of Israel, the 2 houses, that are going to become the kingdom priests. Okay, B'nai Israel, genetic Israel. Okay, so I just wanted to clear that up. So the next footnote we have is in verse 16. And they sent out to him their disciples with the Herodians, saying, Rabbi, we know that you are true and teach the way of Elohim in truth. So teach the way. Let's have a look at this quickly. So teaching the way is Torah. Okay? So that's what it means to teach the way, which means to teach of the commandments and to do the commandments. So that's what Yahshua was doing. He was keeping the commandments and doing the commandments. Okay, the next footnote we have is in verse 23. The same day came to him the Sadducees, which say that there is no resurrection, and asked him. Okay, let's have a look at this word, resurrection. Today they are known as the Karat Jews, and they do not believe in the oral Torah, but historically they did not believe in the resurrection of the dead either. Okay, so today they are known as the Karat Jews. Okay, So let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 24, saying, Rabbeinu, our great teacher, Moses, said, if a man dies having no children, his brother shall marry his wife and raise up sons to his brother. Okay, raise up sons. Let's have a look at this. This is commanded polygamy in the writings as instructed in Torah. So this is about men obviously being able to have more than one wife. Okay, commanded polygamy. It's in the Torah, so a man can have more than one wife. So this is God's law. You know, it's not a sin to have more than one wife. You know, bigamy was invented to make polygamy look bad. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which is in verse 30. For in the resurrection they neither marry nor are given in marriage, but are as Malachim, as angels. So let's have a look at this, as Malachim. Yahushua was clear that while people are being raised, marriage will not be an issue, as the resurrection will be like the twinkling of an eye. It will be very fast, in a split second, at that time. But people in the kingdom will marry and be given in marriages. The questioner did not ask, will they have wives in the kingdom, but they asked what would happen in the resurrection. Yahushua put them on the right path, that you will be like Malachim, angels, because we will fly like them at the time of our resurrection. But once we are raised and established in Israel, we will have wives and children. Okay? So marriages will obviously continue in the kingdom once we have returned. So let's go to the next footnote, which is a continuation. But are as the Malachim in Shamayim, in heaven. Okay, let's have a look at this. So manuscripts miss or omit of Elohim. So some manuscripts miss Elohim. So Elohim should be there. Okay, let's go to the next footnote, which is verse 37. Yahushua said to him, Shema Israel, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Akkad. So let's have a look at this, Shema Israel. So it is quite clear the earlier reference is removed by a later scribe, but the reference is present in Mark 12:29. So Shema Israel, hear O Israel, Yahweh is our supreme one, Yahweh is one. So the next footnote we have is in verse 38. This is the first and the great commandment. Let's have a look at this. So Deuteronomy 6, 4 and 5. The greatest commandment. So see if I can find that now. Deuteronomy 6. Deuteronomy 6, 4 and 5. 4. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh our supreme one, Yahweh is Akkad. 5. And you shall love Yahweh your power with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your might. Okay, so let's go to the next footnote, which we have is in verse 40. On these two commandments hangs all the Torah and the prophets. So let's have a look at this. On these two commandments hangs. So we have here These two commandments are the hooks into the rest of the 613 laws in the Torah. All are valid, 100%, but they all do not apply to every individual. The laws of the priestly service for the Kohanim do not apply to non-priests. The laws of the high priest do not apply to those not able to be high priests. The laws of the Levitical sacrifices do not apply to non-Levitical priests. Hence, let's understand this, that every law in the Torah is valid even today and forever. The same way, in a country, every law is valid in Parliament, but all of them do not apply to you. Example, the laws of agriculture do not apply to non-farmers. The laws of hunting do not apply to non-hunters, but they are all valid. The big difference between a country and heaven is that the laws of the country change every time Parliament selects a new president, but the laws of our Abba, Yahweh, never changes. Okay, so I hope that gives you a little bit more understanding about chapter 22. So this is Rabbi Beaton saying thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the other side. Baruch Shem Kivod Malkuto Leolam Va'ed. Benevolent be the name of his esteemed kingdom, forever and ever and ever. Amen.